All right, I'm recording and I am live streaming it to Facebook in a few seconds. It should be going through. Let me make sure I turned on the volume on it so it doesn't reverberate. There we go. So if people want to leave comments, they can leave comments under here. So can I hear somebody else? Is that me? Okay, I've muted it now. All right. So more people will probably join here real soon, especially since they see that we're live, but it doesn't matter. We're recording it. We're recording it for prosperity. And this is really nice because all three of you guys have done SkeptiCamps. In fact, the very first SkeptiCamp I ever did in my entire life was at Linda's, Fort Collins, Colorado. And that is when I started the GSOW project for reals because kind of did. We were going to be in Colorado, or I can't remember quite what it was, but I'd heard of this SkeptiCamp stuff. And that was Reed Isu is in Colorado, and he's the one who started SkeptiCamp. And you guys were having a SkeptiCamp, and somebody said, "Why don't you do a talk, Susan, while you're here?" I think Mark was going to do a talk, Mark Edward. And I said, "Well, I got this Wikipedia thing I'm trying to do. It's just really silly. It's just me and like two other people." And I did a talk there. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. And I didn't even have a name for it at the time, but that was 2010, 2011.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, but that was my first SkeptiCamp. I wonder if I have pictures of it. Gosh, I wonder if I have pictures. Tell us, Linda, how far have you come from that? I mean, because that wasn't your first one, I don't think, right?
No, I had done one before that in Denver.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. It became a challenge to get a new subject every year.
Oh, and then I went back, Mark and I went back and we did another one and in Fort Collins, and that was at that pizza place. We spent all day there. That bricked, it was all brick. And that was fun. Yeah, Mark did a talk, I did a talk. It was nice. It was a very tiny space, but we were there like 8 hours or something, 6 hours doing talks, and I recorded them. They're up on my channel. I mean, this is the start for a lot of people as SkeptiCamps. That's where you really first start with your first talks. You're starting to get involved in the community. It is a real beginning.
Yeah, it's a nice short amount of time. You gotta, so people don't feel intimidated by, finding talking that long, and and I've heard some just hilarious presentations too over the years.
Yeah, I remember that. Here's this one. Here's you. A close look at therapeutic touch. And let me show this. This is going back to your daughter, Emily's little thing. Here's you. This is 2000, and when was this? When was this? 20th anniversary. So it must have been 2018, right
Hmm.
before the pandemic.
Right.
That must have been it. Oh my goodness. Talk about going back far. All right. So maybe it's just us. I don't know. So one of the things I wanted to talk about first, and then we can kind of start going from there and talking about SkeptiCamps and how to put these on, best practices and all that kind of stuff, is that Center for Inquiry, the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, has decided that they're going to help host the on a website, a place where people who want information about SkeptiCamp can go to one place and they can see where other SkeptiCamps are going to be at, and also has links to all the articles and the articles I've written that say, how to put on a SkeptiCamp, best practices. And then they also have submitting your SkeptiCamp information. So this is just start. Oh, here's Jon Michael. So it's just starting. And here's the link, skepticalinquirer.org/SkeptiCamp. And it looks like this. And you're going to be able to go through and see where the different SkeptiCamps are. And yes, we're going to put the Canadian ones on here. And I don't see any reason why we can't put skeptic camps from outside of the United States and Canada, North America.
Mhm.
And then here's some different articles. They're going to go through and put all the articles I've written because every time I do a skeptic camp, I write an article on what went right, what went wrong, how many people attended, what's the theme, what the talks were about. And then we're going to be putting videos up. And here's the video from West Virginia we just did. This is Kenny Biddle. And then they're going to have just, this is just, we need a place that's going to host all this stuff because I don't want to do it on my website. It's too much for me to manage. And we need a central place. And so this is the central place and they're going to help us out. Adrienne, would you say?
I didn't say anything.
That you started to say something when I said Canada.
No, I was just like,
Hi, Jon. So, skeptic camps are come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, really. I mean, we've done all kinds of different things. Adrienne, why don't you talk about the one that we just did, you did in Edmonton, compared to the one in Edmonton that you and I did. That's last May.
yes, that's correct. Yes. Yeah. So we had an idea. We really wanted to get younger people involved to really start to encourage a more diverse group to come to these events. And I met Rodney Schmaltz at SciCon. We were both doing Sunday papers. And
right.
Yeah, and so that's where we connected. And so we've maintained our connection ever since then. He's in Edmonton and I'm in Calgary, which is a three-hour drive for me. And so we had this idea. We knew Susan was coming up for the Western Canadian Reason Conference. So we thought we would just have a skeptic camp the following Saturday up in Edmonton and to showcase three of Rodney's honor students. So they would speak, Susan would speak, I would speak, Rodney and Kat. I think Kat McLeod was, that was everybody, right? There was three students. And what was really great about that is with that connection at the university, we were given a room without having to pay for it. And that was really important for us because we have no money. And we thought maybe with the university connection, we'd get more students, etc. Unfortunately, in May, session is done. You're done, all the classes. So we didn't know how many people we would get. And we were actually quite pleased. 20 people. There were people who came from all over Alberta just to come and check us out.
Somebody drove 5 hours.
Yes, yeah.
5 hours.
Yeah, Tara Lynn and her partner came 5 hours, and Brenda Hill came from Jasper. So people did come. And there was also quite a few young people because the friends of the people presenting were coming as well. So Rodney had the idea, let's expand on this. And he teaches a fourth-year psych course about essentially critical thinking and the psychology of it. And so he said, let's get my class to do a presentation. So we'll do an afternoon session. During my class, he has a 3-hour class or just over 3 hours. And then in the evening, we'll have longer sessions with myself, Kat, and Rodney. And then we later on added Kenny Biddle on Zoom.
Yeah, over Zoom.
And it was right before Halloween. So we decided to make it a Halloween theme. And Rodney assigned his students presentation material. He booked a room for 60 people, hoping that we were going to surpass the 20 that we had before. I mean, we knew we would because there's 20 students, right? There's usually around 20 students in his class. But we didn't know. We had no idea if this was going to be successful. It was on a Monday. The Blue Jays were playing in the World Series in the evening. So we were thinking we might not get anybody. But we ended up with 59 people during the day. And 30 people at night. So we were thrilled, absolutely thrilled with the success of this event. And I would say there was mostly young people, male, female, people of color. We just had a really diverse group. And it was really exciting. So we were already planning our next one. And it's going to be, we're going to have one per term and maybe one in the summer. We don't know. We're just going to play it
if it's free. I mean,
Yeah.
it just takes you getting there.
Yeah, exactly. So I have expenses, but I don't care. I'm willing to support this and get it going. So we each have to, we each have what we need to do. Rodney books the room. He makes sure, of course, he has to organize his class and make sure they're all going to do a good presentation. And oh my God, the student presentations were excellent.
What kind of topics were there?
It ranged. There was UFOs. There was a monster that I'd never heard of. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm just writing up an article for Skeptical Inquirer. Actually, I should know what the name of it was. I'd never heard of it. It's up from the 70s. Some guy thought, I think it was, oh, where was it? It was what state? It was one of the northeastern more states, and they thought it might have been an escaped kangaroo that he saw. So it was really fun. Stuff I'd never heard of. They were talking about why people like haunted houses, why they go to attractions, what appeals to them. One of the two of the students talked about that. They were all in pairs, and they had to both present, and they each had 15 minutes to present.
Oh,
So it was good. It was rapid fire. It all went really well. Had a few technical issues, which were kind of funny. The projector at the slides went over them so that you couldn't quite see the slides, which was a bit annoying. And Rodney brought in technical help, and they said, "Oh, I can put a ticket in for you, and that'll be fixed by tomorrow." So, classic kind of
oh, that's helpful.
bureaucracy. So we had a good laugh over that. But other than that, it went exceptionally well. We started on time, we finished on time. And then I think the highlight, because it is or was a Halloween theme, was Rodney does a Halloween talk every year about why we like fear and about haunted houses, and particularly Deadmonton. There's this attraction in Edmonton called Deadmonton.
Oh, I thought you were misspeaking. It's called Deadmonton.
It's called Deadmonton.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And he showed some pictures of it, and it looks absolutely horrific. I will not go. I'll tell you that. But people love it, absolutely love it. And so what happens is he puts up this really creepy music, and Kat introduced him, did a great job introducing him. And then the music suddenly went to really happy and light and said, you can still escape if you want. Of course, Rodney's not in the room yet. And then it's a countdown from 2 minutes. And then he walks in, and he's got this evil looking costume on. It doesn't even look like Rodney. And then he starts
He's a
this.
tall man too, so
He's tall, about 6'6". Yeah. So it was very effective. The students who were there, a lot of his students did come to the evening to watch. They loved it. It was a really fun night. So we kind of finished on a big high, and it's turning out to work really well. So that's an avenue people can consider if you can get a university contact
mhm. Or a person
and
who teaches
and
critical thinking.
yes, integrate that into the community. And as well, Rodney and I were talking. I love to get it. I'm a high school teacher, a former high school teacher. Love to get this down into high schools as well, not just universities. And he's all over that. And he has contacts that he goes into actually and does work with some high school students, their high school classes every year. So he's hoping to have a pseudoscience fair December 10th, I believe it is.
This year?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, damn. I'm not even going to write it down because I am not going to be able to go because
I
that's
may
right on
not be able to go either because I'm actually supposed to be involved in a training for Trek Canada that day.
Oh,
So I'm trying to figure out how I can do both, but I'm guessing that I
somebody's
won't
got
be
to
able
invent a
to.
cloning machine.
I know, but I'm just so excited that this is going to happen. Now, the teacher strike issue that's going on in our province right now it may not happen this semester, but it's going to happen. We're going to give it a try.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited about starting to expand to include high school. I would love to go all the way down to elementary school, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. Did is that 6'6" in Canadian? No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. I know
Yeah,
there's no
it's
difference.
200 and something,
Centimorgans or
two
something.
point something meters. That's all I know.
So what was the success? You had 59 people. So as far as all the skeptic camps that I've been going to in the last couple of years, the top we've had, we think, is 55.
Mhm.
So 59 is surpassing us. What,
Mhm.
but then again, that's in Canadian numbers. So what, it could be like 30, I don't know. Um,
Be 1,000.
so the success was that it was the second one you guys have done, and
Yeah.
because it was in a place the students were familiar with, and because it was students and they're bringing their friends, and it had a Halloween theme.
Either had a Halloween theme, as well as what we noticed is because you're doing it during school, people were walking in and out. So people were coming late because they were finished classes, but people were, I don't think we got below 50, or I mean 45 at any particular time, but we had teachers coming in too. So there were teachers, there was an administrator who came in, there was a person in the evening who is a registrar from the university. So we got a really wide variety of people who came. And the feedback, I mean, we didn't do a survey or anything, but just from people coming up and thanking us for doing this, I think it was really positive. People seemed to really enjoy it, and the topics were great. Now, Rodney picked the topics for the afternoon.
Mhm.
And then we, as a team, decided on the theme in the evening of the Halloween. And that's why we thought Kenny Biddle would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
scary.
You hear that, Kenny?
Yeah, we love you, Kenny. Don't hurt me again. Don't put me back in the closet. No. Okay, so I want to talk about a different topic. Ramiro, we have done two. Oh, I wanted to show everybody really quick before we move on to Ramiro and your skeptic camps over there. You didn't know you're going to be put on discussed. Here's the article I wrote for Skeptical Inquirer for Edmonton QE2. It's called QE2 because of your freeway, right?
Yes.
Elizabeth
It's also
Freeway.
question everything twice. So we have a freeway that connects Edmonton and Calgary that's called the Queen Elizabeth II Highway.
Mhm.
Or we all abbreviate it as QE2. So Kat, she came up with the idea of calling the conference QE2. We really hope that eventually we'll start them in Calgary as well. Then I don't have to drive.
And then
But
it would fit both because they're all
correct.
on QE2
Exactly.
or QE.
I'm still looking for a connection at a university. I'd really like to try and attempt the same thing down here, and maybe within high schools. I'm still working on it.
Right. So these are some of the pictures from their Betty and Barney Hill abductions, and we had a really great time. This is the one I did in May. So this isn't the one you were talking about that had 59
Correct.
people in it.
Mhm.
And you did a few interviews for people who had for Skeptic Zone,
Yes.
and I think it's it. So everything I write up is, I mean, I write up everything, and you're writing this up
I
because we
am.
need to be able to give feedback to people,
Mhm.
pluses, minuses,
Yeah.
best.
And one of the things that's really interesting is you've always sort of promoted that we bring food in and to keep people, right? And I think it's a great
Yeah.
idea. Unfortunately, the university policy is we cannot bring food into any of the classrooms. So that's one of the downsides with holding it at the
Wow.
university. The
Oh,
upside
that's
is,
right.
but the upside, well, there's a great food court. You'll love it,
Oh,
Susan.
okay. If it's nearby.
Yeah, it's right in the same building. It's just, steps away from
Okay,
where the
well then that's
classroom is.
fine. That's totally
However,
fine. Oh,
the really great thing is zero cost to us. Like there's no food cost, there's
oh,
no
because the
venue
students are
cost.
buying their own.
Yes. So they bring their own food. If they have snacks, they can bring their own snacks. But generally speaking, food is not allowed in the classroom. So you can't eat your food in the classroom to socialize. You have to just kind of hang out at the food court.
Okay, well that makes total sense.
Yeah,
The
it's
only
great.
reason why I insist that food be brought in is people leave the venue to go find food and then they don't come back, or they come back
Yeah.
and the person who has the first talk after lunch, there's, you're like, should I delay they're not here.
Yeah.
Most of the room's gone. And also you want to keep everybody together because that's where the discussions happen, the bonding happens, and you're starting to interact with each other, and it just makes
And
it
we
so much easier.
we did find that everybody kind of went on their own places. I don't know. There were quite a few people who were in the afternoon and the evening session, but they did not eat with us. I don't know where they went. It's so that sort of bonding, socializing is one of the things that didn't happen. It doesn't mean in the future it won't. We could actually say we're going to meet at Edo, for example, and just make sure everyone knows where we're going to be. So
Is
that's
there
an
a food
improvement.
court that has tables out in
Yeah.
front with multiple venues?
Yeah.
Like they could all meet at one section
Mhm.
at a,
Exactly. And
that
we
might
did
be a
not,
solution.
yeah, we didn't organize that this time, and it's something going forward that we would consider doing because we just didn't know. We didn't organize it because we didn't know how many people would come. And it was just sort of hope for the best. Our next one is going to be on a Friday. It's going to be Friday the 13th. We're
Oh,
excited.
even better. You could bring in Margaret Downey. Hey,
Ooh.
the idea of bringing people to a food court and maybe having somebody there who could be like, you know how Richard Saunders would go from table to table and do spoon bending
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It might pull people together to eat together if there was
Mhm.
some kind of either activity or some kind of
That's right.
something close up magic, I don't know, that would just bring people to say, let's stay in these same tables together. And it
A
could even bring
big
people from
cake.
different, a big cake. Oh yeah, we
That's what
could
it is, a
even
big
a
cake.
cake, even a cake. And it would bring people from other tables who were like, what's going on over here? And then you
That's
could
right.
bring them in because you know they're free. So okay, really good idea. So Romero, I have written 2 articles on SkeptiCamp Triangle Skeptics. The first one was in 2024. We did it in May, Towel Day weekend. And then after that, we did it again in May, Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. So if you want, what I want you to talk about is this idea we were really panicking that would we attract people. And so you guys did something by asking for money right off. Tell me what you thought about that and how that worked or didn't work or whatever and why.
Yeah. Well, the first one we didn't ask for money. It was completely free. And then the second one, think we like the reasoning was like we want to have like some buy-in from the um, attendees because we thought like okay if they register and it's completely free, like we're gonna get a ton of registrations, but then they're like, oh, it's free. I'm not gonna lose anything
Mhm.
if I don't go. But if they have to pay, then I think, they're like, oh, I don't want to lose $5, which I think was how much it costed. And
Five
then,
dollars.
yeah. And then we also had like the option we put there, like if you can afford that, um, because you're a student or have other financial problems, then just let us know. And nobody contacted us about it. Uh, there was one person that showed up, then they hadn't registered. We just let him in. So it's not like we would turn people back at the door. Um, I don't how it worked. I don't know. To be honest, like we had, I think overall we had less people the second time when we did it, but it wasn't noticeable. I think so. It's yeah. So the first time we did it, we had like there's a local atheist group that meets on Saturdays, and so what we worked something out where we said like, okay, like your normal Saturday meeting, like why don't you make it at the Skeptic Camp? And so a lot of those people came over the first time. So I think my guess would be that that's probably why we had a little bit more people the first time because the second time we didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I think that like asking for like $5 wasn't like it didn't cause any issues. And we did get a little bit of funds to cover some of the expenses. So I think overall, I think it was probably a good thing. I think we'll probably try it again next time and see so that we can compare apples to apples. Um, yeah.
I remember this. Now, when you did your first Skeptic Camp and you told me what day it was going to be on May 25th, I said, oh my God, that's Towel Day. And for
Yeah.
nerds, they might know that, oh, we should mention where you guys are. Where are you guys at?
Yeah. We're in Raleigh, North Carolina. Um, yeah. So I think we that was just the day that like the organizers were available. It wasn't planned around Towel Day, but then we leaned into the Towel Day theme. The first time we made towels, like attendees could buy towels.
Mine's just over. I know where my towel is. It's right over on the
Yeah,
door right there. And
yeah,
they gave us towels that said, don't panic, Triangle Skeptics. It was
yeah.
great.
Um, so yeah, a little something like fun things like that. Um, oh, that's the other thing I think that is like I try to invite a lot of people, and a lot of people told me like, oh, I wish I could go, but it's Memorial Day, right? Memorial Day, and I'm gonna be traveling with my family, so I won't be able to make it. So I think our plan for the next time is gonna be to move it to a better, more convenient place for people. I don't know when. Um, yeah, that was the downside. So we probably have to give up the towel day theme, but I
It was
think
fun.
yeah, probably hopefully more people come. If there's no holiday around.
The other thing that I wanted you to talk about was the venue that you guys had. In fact, while you're talking, I'm going to put up this, the first, article I wrote, and I'll just scroll through that so people can be glancing at that. But talk about, in 2024, was it 2025? We went to that venue, twice for our Friday meetup in the Skeptics in the Pub. No, it was the first time, 2024. It was at large food court, remember?
Yeah.
And then after the Skeptic Camp, we went there again. So talk about that really quick, and why that worked out really well. And it just kept, people going while I put this up.
Yeah, so like usually we have a problem with restaurants like making a large reservations for people. But yeah, we have a food hall in in here in Raleigh. And how that works is that there's a whole bunch of little restaurants distributed throughout the building, and then there's tables. So how it works is that anybody can, go and purchase their food and come back, sit, mingle, and they can come and leave whenever they want. So yeah, the reason that worked well, I think, is because like we didn't have to make a reservation. There was no cost for that. And then everybody could find something that they liked. Like if some people didn't like Indian food, they could go to get pizza or
Mhm.
something that they would enjoy.
And it
Um,
worked out perfect because, like you said, trying to make a reservation somewhere is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. So I think probably finding some place like that where there's multiple food options around, um, and that people can choose from, and then we can bring tables together to chat and to mingle. Yeah.
This last time we went to this place, I'm showing it on the picture right now. I don't quite remember where that was. There's John. There's
Yeah.
Ramiro. There's I. There's Adrienne. Adrienne, you were there. How'd that happen?
Did you forget that?
I see you so many different places. I do forget these things. Yeah, we appear in some odd places, don't we, Adrienne?
Hmm.
So here's the venue we had. One of the problems with this venue was I think it cost,
Mhm.
and the room next door to us was doing karate or something.
Yeah.
Oh, here's your workshop you're doing, Adrienne. You did a workshop. I love when you do your workshops. There's John. He did his talk, and
It was a
then
great facility, other than the karate next door.
yeah, and then okay, so I'm going to talk about this in a minute, going someplace afterwards the next day, but let's not get to that quite yet. So the idea of SkeptiCamp, if people haven't figured it out yet, is socialization. It's just, at least the way I'm trying to push these SkeptiCamps, it's all about bringing the community back together again. It's not necessarily about attracting people outside of our community. I mean, if they show up, that's a bonus. But really, what I'm trying to aim for right now with this new focus on SkeptiCamps is to get people who are already in our community. They already know what our podcasts are. They already know what our books are. They already know about who James Randi was. They already know about pseudoscience. But to get them to come to a live event instead of, we've had years of just watching things on YouTube and, attending stuff virtually, but to get people to come out because we need to find our new leaders, our new speakers, our new donors, our new doers. And I don't think we're going to find that community unless we're back together. So I put a lot of emphasis on not the talks, but on the socialization and making sure that's arranged so it sort of feels natural, but it's pulling us together, because I think that's what we miss. And I met Linda a long time ago. What were we saying? 2011, we think, Linda?
Yeah, something like that.
And she had one of the first skeptic camps that I'd ever heard of in Fort Collins, Colorado. And that was the start of my career, I guess. Linda, do you have any thoughts about that? You're
Well, it
not me, but,
was a nice social event. I mean, if you put put a crowd of people in a small room for a day, uh, they pretty much get to know each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was, and you said they had them in Denver. I remember attending them in Denver in probably 2013 or 2012.
Maybe even earlier.
Hmm. I remember when they had those, and then
Mm.
Colorado has just imploded as far as the skeptic community. We had a very strong group there, but we had a lot of drama that happened, and we won't get into that right now. But that just kind of imploded the skeptic community. What is it that we were talking about? Mission creep started getting in there, and toxic personalities kind of got into, and it just ruined it. And Colorado has never been the same since.
And I think another thing that happens too is change of leadership. And if you get somebody, I mean, I certainly saw this with Trek Canada, where, you know, a change of leadership and suddenly the organization is struggling. There's so many factors that can
yeah,
go.
it's nice if you, yeah, we have to find those new leaders, and we might also attract people who are not great leaders,
That's right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's the risk you take.
Yeah.
And we had a suicide too, which put a real damper on things.
Really? I don't remember that. Well, maybe don't go into it right now, but I don't remember that. Was that Fort Collins or Colorado?
The fellow who actually did the audio visual stuff for the SkeptiCamps. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's a shame. Wow. Well, that'll
Many-
put a damper on it.
Yeah.
We've only
Many
had
factors.
we've only had one death at a skeptic camp so far, and that was LA. And I was not there.
Oh, it's awful.
Not there.
So
Santa
awful.
Monica. I was not there. He died during the Q&A session. But if you want to know that story, you're gonna have to show up to one of my Q&A. You were gonna have to talk to one of my events, and I'll tell you privately. You have to buy me a iced tea or something someplace in person. And I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you Linda off hours. I don't, I don't regret, but he died during the Q&A session.
Yeah, it
He
was
was
awful.
he was being Q&A'd.
Uh,
And he died during it. I'm not laughing at him. I'm just
No.
saying we've only had one death. So the more skeptic camps we have, the less per capita deaths we have. Makes it. Yeah. So yeah.
oh, what a thought. I was wondering if
Mhm.
is Craig Foster
Yeah.
doing a SkeptiCamp?
He was at the skeptic camp I was at in Seattle just August, September. I was just there. I love Craig Foster. He did a fantastic talk, but he wouldn't allow us to record it because he was talking about his school district and middle school and elementary school, and the problems that they're having with getting critical thinking into the lower level classes. And the reason he says is because you're starting some of the topics, you have to be so vague with the critical thinking topics because you don't want to hit any of the sacred cows of any of the parents, because then the parents put the pressure on the students, I mean, the teachers and the administration. So he says you have to keep it very vague. I mean, you can't even talk about aliens, space aliens, or medical quackery or anything like that, because it's going to, parents will see it in their own eyes and say, ah, you're trying to get into my religion, or you're trying to get into my practices, or you're trying to impose something on us. So he was talking about how it's just nearly impossible to get, you know, we in the skeptic community are constantly talking about, we got to get to the young people, we got to get to young people. But if you try to do it through the school itself, he says you're running into just hot potato after hot potato, and it's just almost impossible to do. They do teach critical thinking. They do teach critical thinking reading. I I think they get into some of the stuff that's like Melanie Teresa King talks about lateral checking your sources, how to evaluate a source. They do all that stuff, but he says that you can't get to the meat of it whenever in that grade. And then in Santa Cruz, hold on, I'm pulling this up. So I love Craig Foster, but we weren't allowed to record his talk.
Well, is he still teaching at Ithaca?
No, he's in Seattle. He's helping
Oh.
run a middle school. I think he's an
Oh,
administrator in a middle school now. His family's in Seattle. So yeah, that's why you haven't seen him in Colorado Springs or anything like that anymore. He's moved. So he's gone. But yeah, he's with the Seattle Skeptics now. And so I just saw him, and that's the talk he gave. And then in Santa Cruz, where I did a Skeptic Camp 4 weeks ago, something like that, a month ago, they had a teacher who came up from the LA region. He drove up about 5 or 6 hours to give a talk, and he's high school. No, he's college. He's like him and his wife both teach college, community college kind of like level, like first or second year. And he says he was talking about all the problems they have too, getting in critical thinking and that kind of stuff. He says that they used to have there's the California state requirements, and there's the state of, there's two different competing college tracks in California, and that they had different standards for what you needed to do to get into the higher level college. So they combined all their standards, which is great, so that you can take these set of classes and they will be applied to the CSU system or the University of system. But they got rid of logic, so logic is no longer taught. I never liked logic anyway. But he also says they're having a lot of problems because of it's much more lucrative for online classes. And when you have online classes, you have less interaction with your students and each other. So they're missing the community, but it's better for the university to have online classes. He said before the pandemic, they had like 5% online classes. Now it's over 50% are online classes.
wow.
So he says that they're trying to push back, but the students and the administration don't really want to do that. They'd rather stay with online classes. And then there's all sorts of problems with cheating and, and AI can't keep up. And then he talked about that. So that was an interesting talk. That video, I think, is up on my YouTube channel about time. But anyway, so yeah, Craig Foster's still around. He's just up in Seattle. He'll be at SciCon.
I was thinking if he was still at Ithaca, that'd be.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
That would be
So we need to find those people. I don't know where we'll find them at. But they're out there. So themed skeptic camps are fun. At the Santa Cruz Skeptic Camp we did, we had the organizer, Greg Rowe. He has theatrical experience. That's his thing. He does a lot of theatrical stuff. And so what he did is we had our Skeptic Camp in our location, and then afterwards we had a 2-hour break. They brought in students who were PhD students from the University of Santa Cruz in drag. So it was STEM into drag. So all the PhD students and, people who were in that program came out in drag and talked about their PhD and whatever science they were doing. And then, they also lip synced and gyrated and had sparkle stuff. It was hilarious. We had over 200 people, about 200 people show up. And that money that was raised for the show went to paying for the Skeptic Camp venue. So it was $700 we raised. And for the use of the facility for both places was about $700. And they didn't even charge the students. So the money that was raised were people who were non-students. It was great. I mean, talk about bringing in youth. But we didn't have a crossover between the students that came for the drag and the people who did the Skeptic Camp. We didn't see any we didn't see anything there. There was a lot of announcing of SkeptiCamp and talking about it. And at the drag show, they mentioned that it was sponsored by the Santa Cruz County Skeptics, but we didn't have any of their speakers. But that was a first time attempt. So I don't know. I thought that was fun. It's different. We're waiting for a burlesque. Somebody do a SkeptiCamp in burlesque. I'm not doing that. We've had other themes. What kind of questions do you guys have? Where should we go with this conversation? Because I guess it's just us.
I mean, like one of the things that we were thinking about that, I mean, like just, going back to like that group that we invited, like that was very helpful. But yeah, we're thinking of like not like preparing everything in like amongst ourselves and then advertising it a few months later, but like forming maybe like yeah, like relationships with other groups in the area, networking, um, to then, have it be in a better position to invite those groups and like build trust and stuff like that. So I don't know if anybody has had success with that or what is like best practices in regards to that or
We have the Humanist Society of Monterey County that we sister with, and with my SkeptiCamp in Monterey County. And there's a lot of bleed over, obviously. The Unitarian Church in Las Vegas. Oh my gosh, we just finished that. I have not written about it yet. It's on my list of things to write about. But we had a very Vegas SkeptiCamp. It was their first attempt doing a SkeptiCamp, and they held it at the Unitarian Church. And they brought in somebody to provide food. She came in and she did like a whole not only cookies, but she had sandwiches and meat and all kinds of stuff. We had full run of this Unitarian Church. They filmed everything for us, and their attendees stayed. And so we had, I don't know, we had over 20 people who stayed the entire day, and we went from 9 in the morning till 7 at night. They also brought out a taco truck is there at night, so people were able to go out and get tacos and stuff. But that church paid for pretty much everything because the person on the board of the Unitarian Church is also a member of the skeptic group. So she helped cover costs that the Unitarian Church didn't cover. But it was amazing. I mean, they just did anything we wanted pretty much, and they were kind and they stayed. So we just put on there that they helped sponsor it. And of course it was good for it was a good bleed over. I mean, it was a good use. Libraries seem to be a pretty popular venue. In Lodi, Carolyn did her first SkeptiCamp last April. And what she found is I think she had to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork to be a partner with the library, like submit like what our talks will be about and that kind of thing. And they advertised it for her, and we had it at the library, and it was for free. And that worked out really well. And then in West Virginia, at the West Virginia SkeptiCamp a few weeks ago, gosh, I can't even remember now. Daniel Reed has been doing a lot of work with he's an administrator. He's like a middle school counselor. And so he's been doing a lot of lectures in the West Virginia area on critical thinking, but he's using cryptids because West Virginia is a huge cryptid area. And he's been like doing talks on like Bigfoot tracks and what is the Mothman, and and different kinds of stuff, and bringing in the libraries are loving him. They're like, can you come again? Can you do it again? So he's been doing a lot of library talks. So he's built up a trust with the libraries. So when we went to do this event in West Virginia, he got the library for free. Well, it was like an adjacent library. It was not the library itself. You were there, Ramiro. It was
yeah.
And John
It
was there. He gave a talk. Like the
was
building next
like
to it
an old mansion, right? That was like
used
they
to be
had
a library.
it used to be a library, but then now it's a library for the guy that invented the Black Men in Black. I forget his name.
Yeah, his name is Gray Barker.
Ray
It
Barker.
has archive. It has the city archives. Like you go and you want to know about the city history. It had a lot of. It's next to the library, and so they paid for pretty much everything the library did, and they stayed and helped out with things, but only for the speakers they brought food, and that was great. We got food, but the people who were not speakers had to go out and on their own and try to find food within an hour, and people came in really late, and it didn't have that bonding effect that we really want. So I mean, there's pluses and minuses to some of these, but if you kind of know of them, it helps. Oh, also tables. I know that sounds silly, but you're asking people to sit 6 hours to listen to lectures. You need tables. You want to put your coffee, you want to put your drinks, you want to take notes, you want to lean on something. Sitting in chairs for 6 hours is just too much to ask anybody to do. And in West Virginia, they had very uncomfortable chairs after about 30 minutes. You're like, I'm done with this. No, I'm not kidding, because it'll make people leave at lunch. They'll go, okay, well, that was really interesting, but I'm exhausted. And then they leave, and then they don't stay for the rest of the event.
And that's an issue at a university as well. However, it was tables. We had tables, but we also allowed movement and made sure everybody was aware that they were allowed to come and go. So that, you can, the chairs are like never great at these facilities.
For one talk, okay.
Yeah.
But Adrienne, the first thing we did in Edmonton, it was a classroom setting. So we
Yes.
did have those little tables in front of us.
This was more of a traditional classroom with big tables, and they were all in rows with,
Okay.
yeah. So it was much more easy to kind of get around, I guess, if you want to say. The other one was everything was sort of in place and couldn't be moved, right? Because it was more of a theater style. But this was it was a flat traditional classroom,
Some
but
classrooms
big.
have those tables that fold, the arm comes
Yeah.
over, at least you have something to write on. And
Yeah. No, this is really good with the tables. Lots of people brought in their coffee and their drinks, and it was fine. But that is a consideration to think about.
Yeah, I'm serious. You got to
Yeah.
have tables if you want people to stay. Remember when we did Albuquerque, Adrienne?
That was
And
great
yeah,
facility.
we walked in. They had rented a place. It was our first
Mhm.
SkeptiCamp. They rented like an occupational workplace. What would you call that?
Yeah, I think
What was
that's what it
that?
was. Something like, yeah, it was rented out for training, this place.
Yeah, you could go and have training seminars there, and they had
Mhm.
different rooms.
Yeah.
And we had no idea what to expect as far as attendance. So when I showed up, and I don't know if you were there yet or not, we were in the same car. So yeah,
I
we
was going to
showed up.
say it would have been hard for me to show up at a different time.
Well, I don't know. We walked up and they hadn't set up the tables or chairs
No,
or anything. And all I
nothing.
think they had were rows of chairs, and
Yes, that's correct.
they were comfortable chairs, like
Really
work
nice.
at a
Yeah.
work spot.
Yeah.
But
Noisy, squeaky, unfortunately,
but
but
but they were comfortable.
they were really
But
great.
I said, "Where's the tables?" And they said, "Oh, we don't know anything about tables." I said, "We need tables." And they said, "Well, let's wait until Dave gets here and he'll approve it." And I said, "I'm telling you right now, we're doing tables. Get the tables out."
And they were great.
And they pulled out
All
the
of us,
tables.
yeah, and we all
We put them
got,
out.
it was great. And we set it up. It didn't take very much time.
No, they were big tables. And that was the
Yeah.
problem with that, is we didn't know how many to expect. So we had a
Mhm.
lot of tables. And so it
Mhm.
made like two people at each table. So we didn't have that bonding. We should have
Yeah.
pulled them together. But
Mhm.
to be fair, it was right after the pandemic, was kind of,
Yeah.
so it's like 2023, 20, something like that. It was just at the tail end where people
Yeah,
were still
it
thinking
would have been
about it.
2023, I think. Or no, 2024.
It must have been 23.
Okay.
It could have been 24, but it did feel like we should be
Yeah.
careful still. So
Yeah.
having several mini tables with like 10 people could sit at, but only two people are sitting there.
Yeah.
It worked, even though I wouldn't do that again. I would have less tables, so it forces more interaction with people.
Lovely facility though. Really beautiful. Probably the nicest facility we've been in for SkeptiCamps,
Yeah, those chairs
in
are
my
great.
opinion. Yeah.
I'm trying to pull up a thing. So getting back to your question, Romero, I think that here, let me pull up a picture of this. There's lots of avenues of people who can try to liaison with. I wouldn't turn much down. I mean, I would turn down the Heritage Society or something, but here is New Mexico. Remember, he brought in these are cannonballs, and he covered them up with foil, and then he broke them together, and it made a huge popping sound. And this, when it hits the cannonballs, hit the foil, it makes thermine,
Thermosol. No,
no,
that's wrong. That's the
Termite.
wrong thing.
Termite.
Thermite. Thank you. I was
yeah,
thinking
whatever
like
is they said
vaccine.
they found in the there's Adrienne.
Marisol.
Yes.
No, not the Marisol. Here's the venue. Here's a picture. So you can see they're large tables, really comfortable chairs. We had very few people show up, but he was able to do 2 days. Yeah,
That's
he
so
did
fun.
2 days because they offered him a deal. They said, if you're going to pay for Saturday, I don't know, like $400, we'll throw in Sunday for another $100. He goes, okay, I'll take Sunday. But he had the funds to do that because they have been taking dues from the New Mexico, New Mexicans for Science and Reason, but they had not had any lectures they'd never spent the money. So they were able to spend the money on a venue. We didn't have it this last year because the organizers were having health issues. So that didn't happen. Yeah. So I think before we wrap up, we should talk a little bit about 2026 a little bit and other ideas. And to let everybody knowing all of the crowd that's watching us right now, all thousands of you guys, that I'm going to be doing the same kind of meet and greet and kind of discussion about SkeptiCamp also on Veterans Day. That's the 11th of November. I'm going to be doing it at 4 o'clock California time, I think, so that it might hit a different group of people. I figured if we pick Veterans Day, there'd be more chance people have the day off. You guys have it in Canada, right, Adrienne?
It's called Remembrance Day here. Same idea.
Same kind of
Same
thing.
day,
Same
November
idea.
11th. Yeah.
Yeah, 11/11. Wasn't that when they signed the armistice in World War I? 11/11
Yeah, it's
and
from
11.
11:11
Oh,
at
John woke
11.
up.
Hey, hello. Sorry. 11:11 it's the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month was when the armistice was signed. We're
That was
the
World
only
War I.
country, yeah, and we're the only country for the most part that calls it Veterans Day. Most of the rest of the world, it's like a Remembrance Day specifically for World War One.
Mhm.
But they, of course, yeah, I
Yeah.
shouldn't explain it when we have a Canadian here who can explain it for us.
Well,
It's all good.
the point is that it's a day off for people and that maybe want to come and hang out. So, John, do you have anything you want to say since you're here, even though your video's
Yeah,
off?
so
You're not appearing on Facebook, so because your audio is off. I mean, your video's off.
yeah, but I have a desktop and I couldn't find my webcam anywhere. I apologize. I wanted to ask, or I wanted to just point something out, but I didn't get a chance about the food part. I did notice, so at the West Virginia Skeptic Camp, I did notice like after lunchtime, a few people definitely did not come back. However, at the Triangle Skeptic Camp, I think we did a good job because we had provided food for ours. We went and got pizza, and I noticed that like a lot of people did stick around when we provided that pizza for them. So, could be anecdotal, but I think definitely if you're able to provide food, just from my observation for those two skeptic camps, it did seem like more people kind of stuck around. That was the only thing I kind of wanted to add to the conversation.
100%. 100%. Yes,
I think you're right.
You've got to bring in pizza or tell people to brown bag it, or you have it at a venue that has food that is so close that they can't miss it. But as soon as they leave, that's done. That happened in New Mexico. People decided they were going to go to a restaurant at the lunch, and they went across the venue. It was very close, but they went to a restaurant with a waiter who sits down, and they didn't show back up until a half an hour after the first talk was scheduled after the break, and I was pissed. I ripped into everybody. How dare you guys leave the venue? And
We were all socializing, Susan.
Yeah, but there was only like 20 people at the whole venue, and 15 were gone. So there was like 5 of us waiting.
It was not good.
It was not good.
It was not
Considering
planned, right? And
no,
I
no,
remember,
somebody
yeah,
just led, and everybody goes, "Oh, okay, we'll go." And
yeah,
oh, what
that's
a
what happened. Yeah.
there was a Carl's
And,
Jr. right there too.
and
And
what's interesting with that too, because I was in those meetings, the planning meetings, that was one of the things you really did stress, that make sure you bring food in. Now, I don't know, maybe they didn't allow it. We don't really know the details for that part,
no,
but
we had food. We had donuts at the beginning of the day.
oh, that's true. We did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
So they
had
probably
food.
could have,
And
yeah, we could have had
I
pizza.
went and got Carl's Jr. and came back to the venue and had my Carl's Jr. there so I could hang out with people.
And I do prefer, personally, this is a personal thing. I do prefer not having to leave and having the food there. It's very nice. It's a nice way to not worry about it because it's already pre-planned. And my head is actually worrying. I bet we could make some kind of a deal with one of those vendors at the food court, or several of them, to make something happen to attract, maybe give a discount or maybe subsidize it somehow. I mean, I could do that a little bit, just to try and make people attend, to kind of hang out with us. And we just haven't done that. Well, we weren't there yet. We didn't, as I say, we actually thought we'd get 0 people on Monday night with the baseball game, and we were pleasantly surprised. And we're going through that same worry because our next one's on a Friday. And it's student reading break the following week. So we're worrying a little bit about that. And it's a Friday. And will that be successful? Will it not be successful? We're going to find out. And so it's kind of fun. But if we have those little, like maybe some donuts or something to feed to people, I think that's a really good idea. And I think it really does make a difference for all the ones that I've been to. The ones where the food is in the area, right? Like in the room, actually, are my favorite. For regarding
from a speaker's perspective too, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Adrienne.
No, it's fine, John. Yeah.
Let's say from a speaker's perspective too, like I know I've had the after lunch time slot, not at Skeptic Camps, but at other events, and it's always like, oh man, no one's gonna show up to my presentation. And then when they do, they're walking in like halfway through and it's very distracting. So if you can kind of keep all that in-house, a speaker that has that time slot, in my experience, that's like the worst time slot, the post-lunch time slot.
If they give it to you, that's because the organizer is confident you're going to bring them back, John.
Oh,
that is the dead spot. I've had that spot, and it's not a good place. They did it at SciCon. I had that spot at a SciCon once. I was on the main stage, but the problem was is Neil deGrasse Tyson was hanging out. They had like a VIP lunch with him, and he's just hanging out and just keeps talking and talking, and then he's walking.
They were late, yeah.
He's walking through the corridors, and people were just hanging on to him, and people were standing out there listening to him continuing to talk instead of him saying, "Oh, it's 2:00. We need to get back into the venue to respect the next speaker," so that and, maybe not. But
well, and another thing too that I just with all this talk about the meals, I think one thing I would like to do maybe differently is to make it not an hour break, because an hour, I think, if you're going to socialize, is not enough if you're going to a food court. So I'm going to talk to Rodney and Kat about maybe making it an hour and a half break. But then I worry too, is that too long? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's better to maybe
I've seen doing 30-minute breaks, but having the food in the vent. When we did,
but we can't do that if you're not allowed to.
Well, Ramiro, when we did and John, when we just did the Triangle Skeptic one, we ordered pizzas, but we ordered them too late, and so we had like a downtime where we
had to
looking
pick
at
them
each
up.
other. And then you guys went and got the pizzas and came back, and we just continued the SkeptiCamp with the pizzas and our, we're eating.
You were just eating, yeah.
And that was fine. People did it eliminates some of the socialization, but I think you could do it in a half an hour if the food is sitting there waiting.
We have to order though, right? We have to go to a place, we have to get in line, we have to order.
Or you have it arranged to have it delivered at a certain time.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if we can have some kind of pre-order. That might be a way to do it.
People have done that. They've had them delivered to the venue, and then that's when the
we can't do that though. It has to be from the food court, right? We can't have anything delivered.
You could pre-order. So I mean, that's possible for generally for anybody else. You could have it delivered. You could also get a kitchen Some venues have kitchens, and what we've done in Monterey is we've gotten pizzas and just popped them in the oven at a certain time, and then had them ready for the break, brought them out. Oh, another thing we got to have is you've got to have caffeine through the whole day.
Mhm.
Coffee. I
Yeah.
don't drink coffee. I don't drink any of that stuff, but I know that it is just impossible for people. They go out to get a coffee because they can't make it through the rest of the
Yeah.
day. And then if they go out, then again they're late. You lose them. So you got to have coffee the whole day there. And in my event in Monterey, we bring in big vats. I have a couple women, Deborah and Kathy. They handle all the food part. I don't have a clue what they do. It just works. Every year it's perfect. And I handle the speakers and the audio visual and the location and the website. They just do the food. And they bring a big giant thing of water, and they boil the water and they make coffee there. And people love it because it runs most of the whole day and it's free because it's just
Another suggestion, and again, sorry, I think there's a little bit of a delay, so I apologize if I keep interrupting you guys. But another suggestion I might have is maybe not do the immediate event where you return from lunch to be like a speaker slot. Maybe do something kind of social instead. That way, if people do
Oh.
show up late, they're not quite missing.
that's a
They're not
great
walking in like the middle of a presentation. And that also may draw people to come back because they don't want to miss like this social aspect.
Like a workshop almost kind of thing.
Yeah,
where
Mark
there's
Yeah, yeah.
did it.
action.
Mark used to do magic. He would do a mentalism show. So we'd be like, okay, you got to get back in time for the mentalism show. So he would do that right after lunch, and that worked. He kind of was annoyed by it because people were walking in during his thing. But for the event people, you're right. It's not walking into a middle of a lecture where you're missing part. We've done. We had I think in Vegas, I think we had a magician is the first one after, now that I think of it. No, maybe not. I like that, John. It's a good idea to
I
bring
love that
people back
idea.
with some other kind of activity.
I wanted
Good.
to suggest too one thing that I liked about the Virginia SkeptiCamp was, well, first of all, like I was falling asleep a lot during it. I think I mean I hadn't had a good sleep the night
Yeah, I
before.
noticed you were falling asleep during my presentation in particular,
He didn't
Ramiro.
sleep
That's
during my presentation.
impossible. John,
I would have gone over and poked him in the eye if he had done that in mine.
But like the caffeine helped. So they had like sodas, water, but they also had like door prices kind of things.
Oh,
So
that's
that
right.
made it like it broke things up, so like you were not just listening to a lecture, like
Mhm.
you could get up, stretch, for like 2 minutes
Movement
or
breaks.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Movement
they
breaks.
also had like in the middle, like a little tour of the facility, like the
That's
books
right.
and stuff. So maybe have, something where people have to get up, be active so that it makes them like, yeah, so they they're not just sitting there the whole time listening to a lecture.
That's a great point. And the speakers should be hopefully engaging enough that they're bringing interaction to the community. So you want to kind of, when you're planning your speakers, and if you have a group of people who are like more professional speakers, they do a lot of speaking, which we're blending them into the groups. And then you have people who are kind of untested, they're brand new, there's their first talk. You might want to mix them with the more experienced speakers so that you don't have like a lull where you might have kind of somebody who's got an interesting talk, but they're not a great speaker, they're very monotone or whatever, like this. Not all together. You kind of break them up a little bit because you may end up with people who are not the top speakers. It's SkeptiCamp by nature is a crowdsourced local thing, Linda, like how we used to start it when we started back in the day. It was always mostly inexperienced speakers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So you don't know what you're going to
Which
get.
I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it could be really good, but sometimes it might be really bad.
For
Well, I
the
can tell
most
you that
part, I was really impressed.
people were worried, right? They get nervous about speaking in front of a crowd. So they usually do a good job. And that's something I noticed that the students I noticed from Rodney's class. I was there the week before. I gave a talk about spirit photography and audio pareidolia and stuff like that. And when Rodney announced that there was opened up to the public, some of them had obviously missed that piece of information before, and you could tell they were visibly nervous. And but they were great. Like you say, Linda, these new speakers who aren't used to speaking in front of the public were really good.
Yeah. One thing that the Denver skeptic meeting did to kind of like an icebreaker was divide up into, I think it was 4 teams, and they had sort of a trivia contest on how much, how much do you know about skeptic issues,
At the beginning of the event or somewhere
I
in the middle?
I can't remember, but I think it was at the beginning of the afternoon.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Sort of in the middle.
From the skeptic camps I've attended, the ones that seem to bring the community together faster are the ones that have a workshop or an activity first off in the morning, because they are starting to get, otherwise they're just sitting there. These are people, some of them who might not have been to an event in a while and are just like, okay, well, what are we doing here? I'm not talking to the people next to me. I can just maintain myself, just in my chair. But if you start them off with something, what we used to do in Monterey, and I haven't done it in a while, is we used to do I had a guy come in who's one of our members. His name is Arlen, and he would do a question, like he'd put up on the screen. I always had to make his PowerPoint for him, but he'd put like a quotation quotient. He used to do a thing for the newspaper. So he always did this thing with quotations like, did this person really say this? Did this famous person really say this? I mean, it could be any activity you want, and what it did is you'd put it up on the screen and people had to go, he'd be like, all right, vote. Is it Abraham Lincoln? Who said that? Or JFK? And people would vote. And then people would go, and then they'd laugh and they go, oh, and they turn to the person and go, oh, I really thought that was Lincoln. And it just kind of breaks the ice a little bit. It could be something as simple as that, or some kind of workshopy kind of thing. I do a lot of workshops, as does Adrienne, and we'll say, all right, everybody turn around, you're going to get at a table. And I will go over to tables where I think that they're kind of like not like 2 people are sitting there and they're not in. I'll say, hey, can you come over here and sit with this group? Because there's only 2 people here. And I'll put people, and people thankfully will do it.
Usually
They do what I say, but they'll come over, and then we'll have groups of 5 or 6. And then I'm really watching to make sure everything's okay. And then they start having a good time. You can see them interacting with each other. And then maybe at lunchtime, they're still interacting with each other. And that's what we're looking for, is you're trying to make sure everybody feels comfortable. You don't want to force anybody, but if you break the ice early, then it makes the rest of the skeptic camp go well, and you have more interaction. People seem to have a higher engagement. They leave saying, that was really a lot of fun hanging out with those people.
And another point that I think is interesting, when I did your workshop on Tourette syndrome at your first in-person skeptic camp after the pandemic, I believe.
In Monterey. Yeah.
In Monterey, yeah. I did a Tourette workshop. And
that was first in the day, wasn't it?
No, it was not. I did the
Winchester Mystery House.
I did the Winchester, and I noticed people were sleepy. And I really like the idea of starting off with a workshop and ending with the workshop. I had people come up to me after that saying, thank you so much for doing a workshop at the end of the day. I was starting to really fade.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Brought
Start
them
with a
back.
workshop or an activity, and then
yeah, some kind of an activity. Exactly. Yeah.
That's a really good point. We had we're not seeing a lot of workshops, and panels kind of work, but I don't think panels are as good, because not everybody gets a question, and then they're just kind of sitting there, and you feel really awkward for the other person sitting there. They don't get, the person who gets the questions are usually the person who was last on the stage. And so I'm not really high on panels. I don't know what you guys thought about that, but I mean, you could.
It depends
And
on how you
the
do the
panels.
panels. Well, it depends on how you do the panel. In my experience, of course, this is more. I've never done a skeptic panel. I've always done like. Well, that's not true. I
You
at
did one
Dragon
in
Con.
West Virginia, and we just kind of stood there.
Yeah, that was I don't that was a very quick panel. I guess I did one for Dragon Con, but like for me, when you do a panel where it's more of let's have a conversation with the panelists and then they kind of take crowd questions, but then everyone on the panel discusses the question. Those are the ones that tend to work. Like
Mhm.
I see work really well. Where for me, the like what happened at West Virginia Skeptic Camp in my personal opinion, those don't work quite as well. Like ask a question to anybody up here kind of thing.
Yeah, because
You're
everybody else is sitting
right.
there going, nobody's asking me a question.
Correct, right. Because I had specifically not done question time in my presentation in order to like do the panel time. But then I think everyone was just so tired whenever the panel time came around, like no one really wanted to ask that many questions at all to anybody because it was the end of the day.
Mhm.
So yeah, it just depends. Like if you dedicate a panel time to a specific topic and talk about that, that can encourage audience participation. But if it's like an ask me anything type panel, I think
I
those
agree.
kind of tend to be duds.
Because the ones that we did in Albuquerque, I thought were excellent. I thought they
They
were
were
really
topic
well done.
driven, right?
They were topic driven,
And I
exactly
think
what
there's
Jon
only
was
three
saying.
people on the panel.
Yeah. Plus, we had Celestial Ward, who is brilliant at moderating that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess you have to have a good moderator too.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. So panels can work.
It's iffy, yeah, as Jon said.
Yeah, I think in West Virginia we wanted to include somebody who didn't want to give a talk, but he said he would be on a panel.
Hmm.
And we said, let's put you on a panel. And then they made the topic to be about something that was his expertise so that he could shine a little bit, even though he didn't want to do an actual talk. So it was social media, trying to how to better market in using social media or something like that, getting your message across in social media. I think I was dealing with something on the phone at that moment. I can't remember, something with the airline, I think. So I had to leave the room part of the way.
But it's like anything, even a workshop can fall flat, right? So we have to be a little careful with anything that we're going to do.
Right. Oh, I should tell you what we did in a very Vegas skeptic camp because I haven't mentioned that yet. I haven't written it up. So Gail Knapp, who is one of the organizers and on the board of the Unitarian Church, she wanted to do this workshop that she'd heard about, or I guess she's done it before, with spaghetti noodles and a marshmallow and tape. And I hadn't, she said, "Oh, come on, this is a great idea. It's a team building exercise and it's really
I've
great."
done that. Yeah.
If you
Have
know
you?
it,
I've
I
done
don't
it.
know.
Yeah.
and I purposely didn't look it up because I didn't want to know anything about it. So we went into another room. She gave us instructions. She showed us a video and she goes, "Okay, now you're going to go into the room. I want 5 people per table. Don't touch anything because it's timed. And that's part of the thing is to be timed. It makes makes people work differently. And no talking about it until you sit at the table." We sat down, we had an Elvis impersonator that did all of our MC. He was our MC. That was so much fun, you guys. Having Elvis as the MC, stayed in character the whole day, and he stayed all freaking day. He was there till 7 o'clock in his gold suit. So much fun. So we sat with Elvis, and so we did you have to build, I don't want to get too much into it because it'll spoil it once it's done, but you have to build a tower, you have to put the marshmallow on the top, and it has to stay. And everybody's given the same amount, exactly the same ingredients. And it really wasn't a skeptic related thing or a science, sort of science. But then we came back into the main room and she showed another video and explained what was going on and the different kinds of personalities, how they're able, who is it who usually succeeds at this, because this test has been done hundreds of times, and the people who are the most successful are engineers or 5-year-olds. So 5-year-olds are more likely to do make good use of their time and to use their time wisely. It's because people who are, Linda's like, what? people who are strangers to each other, there's there's a lot of dynamics where they're like, well, I think we should do it this way. And somebody else is like, I think we should do it this way. Or no, you always have us, there's a lot of interaction. Who's trying to be the leader of the group? And with 5-year-olds, they're like, we have a task, let's get on with it. And they just do it. And there was other reasons she suggested, but it was a workshop, but it wasn't exactly a workshop of skepticism. It was just interesting. It broke things up a little bit, like we said, and made people get out of their chairs. We went into a different room. The tables were all set up. We just got, it was different. That was a kind of a unique situation you may not be able to do, but
As an engineer, I will confirm that we are all like 5-year-olds, so that is correct.
I love it, Jon.
But they did. They said the people who had, what is it called? If you had a person who was a project manager on your team, they did really well. But if it was just like CEOs or, like that, they did awful because they're all competing to be the leader of the group and to make the decisions. And so they spend their time. You only get like 18 minutes. You spend your time arguing over how we're going to approach this and who's in charge.
Yeah, and that's the problem I had when I did it. It's like most of the time was spent figuring out which idea we were going to try.
Yeah. Where did you do this at, Ramiro? Was it a work related thing?
Yeah, this was with work. It was like a team building retreat. And so we did it there. Yeah. And another thing that they also had a honey tasting. So they brought in like a person with like different types of honey and explain like what makes different honey taste differently. And then we tasted the honey and we got to keep like some of the honey.
That's cool.
So I think what we're thinking about here for SkeptiCamp, if you have the time, is you don't have to have a skeptical workshop. You could bring something else in. I know in Chicago, we did a SkeptiCamp and Alan Steiner brought in his giant double bass, and he did a lecture that he gives often on being a musician. He's in the Chicago, he performs in all kinds of Chicago venues that are, symphonies and stuff. And so it had nothing to do with science or anything of the sort, but we got to see him talking about the double bass and his experiences and traveling with a double bass. I cannot even imagine getting that on a plane, but he talked about that. And the questions were good. We learned something, and it broke it up a little bit because he was playing and then he would stop and he'd talk about something, and then he'd start playing again and he'd stop, and it broke it up, and it was right after lunch. So it was successful in that way. So maybe just,
Oh, sorry again. Sorry for the delay. Apologize. I'll say this too. Like I work in a lot of paranormal spaces as well, and they really have events figured out. Like they know how to do them. I've spoken at like an event where there was like 20 people all the way to like a few hundred. And the mission for them is always talk about their paranormal stuff, right? But when you actually arrive, that's not the point for most people. Most people are there just to have fun. And they do learn, quote unquote, for what it's worth, quote unquote, they do learn about the paranormal. Um, and we all have our opinion on that. But that's very much like a secondary aspect, but they are more engaged because of all the other stuff that's going on, because of everyone's not taking it so serious. And I think there's something to be learned about that with like a skeptic camp. I was talking to Eric Shaver about this for CSI Con. There's something to be learned about, yes, there's a mission. Skepticism is the mission and critical thinking is the mission. But like if you do like 6 hours of lectures, you're gonna have a bunch of Ramiros who are falling asleep during a great presentation by Jon.
reputation, Romero.
And I think like if you break that up with some entertainment and some fun, and you don't have to do everything. It does not have to be about critical thinking. Everything does not have to be about skepticism. But if you encourage that community and like it will actually enhance the skeptical part and enhance the critical thinking part because people will be engaged, they'll have a good time, and then they're going to come back to your local events also. And I think that's also probably the point of all this is to build our small communities and to make them bigger. And if you bring like an entertaining place and people for places for people to engage, yeah, I think you'll grow your individual groups as well because that's the paranormal people are doing it and they're very successful with it.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it, but those paranormal groups, they attract a large amount of people, don't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, we had a very small conference that I went to. I was able to speak at about critical thinking, but it was a purely psychic convention, and it was about 20 or 30 people, but they did the most minimal advertising. They didn't want a lot of people. But then you have something like Para Unity or anywhere like that that does like hard advertising to get people out there, and there'll be hundreds of people there. But everyone's there having a good time, like walking around and laughing, and it is a very fun space to be in, even for a skeptic. It's a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, I mean they've got it figured out for sure.
Maybe we should probably try to hit up some of these paranormal conferences if they're
I
local
would
to get some
encourage it.
ideas.
Yeah.
I would absolutely encourage it just so you can see how they do things. There's a lot, I don't agree with their viewpoints, but there's a lot that they do right, and I think that we could learn from for sure.
On that question, let me address one more thing to you guys to see if you see how you feel about this. Some of the conferences I've been to have brought in speakers who were paranormal speakers. And in New Zealand, we've done it a couple times. I was there at one. And well, of course, in LA, when we brought in the guy who had just left the flat earth community, Jaron, that was fascinating to hear his take on the skeptic community he had spent 10 years as a flat earther, one of the more prominent ones, even though he's out, but it still was very enlightening. Bringing in people who are, should you say, on the other side to hear their perspective. What do you guys think of that?
I mean,
I mean, absolutely. Like I think so for sure. I mean, that's my mission is to get the two worlds to come together. Not because I think the paranormal people are correct, but because once we break down our
Us
like
versus
our
them.
insular communities, right? Like that's how we spread critical thinking, how we spread skepticism, right? So absolutely. On the flip side, I will say just make sure you don't get into scope creep. Like, make sure you know your particular mission for your particular event and make sure that inviting someone of a different perspective fits within that mission and you don't kind of get into the scope creep where all of a sudden it's becoming more than what you expected and kind of watered down. But I think it's personally a great idea, especially if they're willing to come in.
And
yeah,
hang out the whole day would be better.
Yeah,
think
because I
that's
mean
what I was thinking.
that's what they're doing for me, right? Like they're inviting me to these places, so they're already doing it too. Um, and so that's something else that a lot of these groups are doing well is they do want skeptics to come into their paranormal events. So personally, I see nothing wrong with doing the opposite as long as it fits your mission for what you're wanting for your event.
And guarantees too, if there is a question answer, that people are polite. I think that's where we have to be careful. Skeptics can kind of be a little aggressive.
Jerks.
Good word.
Maybe jerks. Yeah. You really have to watch. You have to have a very strong MC who's going to moderate.
Mhm.
What were we
Correct.
going to say, Ramiro?
Well,
Um,
we had a situation where we thought we were really safe in inviting a true believer because she was an astrologer
Mm.
and she was going to bring along her husband who is an astronomer. And
Talk about a marriage. Wow.
yeah, things we could just see this troubled marriage in front of us.
I wouldn't attend that. I would feel that.
We
The
just
husband
let
and
them,
wife.
go at it.
Well, go ahead,
But
Ramiro.
I've always wanted to see a debate between a flat earther and a hollow earther.
Oh, that's good one.
Oh, that would be wow. That would be really good.
Yeah, and what I will say, because I have also done professional debates in philosophy space, is just remember the point of debates is never about the people doing the debate, because neither one's going to change their mind. It really is about the crowd. So if your crowd is already all skeptics, you're honestly, there's not a big point in it, in my opinion. But if you have a mixed group, if it's a more mixed event, debates are great for that. But that's the only thing I will say, just being in that professional debate world for a little while, is make sure you have a mixed crowd if you're going to do debates. Otherwise, it's kind of an exercise in um, I have a term in my head, but it's not appropriate. It's an exercise in, self. Yeah, just it doesn't actually do anything. It's kind of a pointless exercise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, um, I don't know. I would be concerned, I guess, about bringing somebody in. Like, I think that I would want to know the person, that the believer, to know like they're vetted well, and then because the other thing, like, if our goal for skeptic camps is to um, you know provide a space or for people to get experience in giving talks skeptically. Um, like, I wouldn't want to take some spot away and give it to a believer. But I think it's like a case by case basis, right? I don't think that we should, like, other skeptics should go out and seek, like, oh, we need to find somebody on the other side to bring in. Like, I think if it happens, like, maybe like you have a good relationship with them, your group well, and you know that it's gonna mesh together.
Yeah.
But
And someone like Kenny who knows somebody that might
exactly,
fit in
yeah,
well.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
yeah.
right.
Or like
And
John, like, I
I
would
was gonna say,
trust John
yeah.
to say, like, if John says like this would be a good speaker for a group,
he's seen him
uh,
speak before. He knows the person.
yeah, exactly.
They're
Yeah, like
friendly,
I've
they're not gonna be mean. Yeah.
yeah, I've got all sorts of people I could
That's a really good
recommend. And
idea.
but I think it also goes back, Romero, what you're saying right there, I think it also goes back, like, what is the point of your event? And does inviting someone who's a believer, yeah, does it take away from another slot where you could get a skeptic who would otherwise be presenting and plugged into your community and maybe even giving like a platform to become a leader themselves? That's why it comes back to, like, what's the point of your event?
Mhm.
And so now on the flip side, like, I can think about a particular ghost hunter I could invite, who I think would do a good job of like explaining what they do from their own perspective. And I think that would be helpful to skeptics because it would show them that, like, paranormal believers aren't a bunch of idiots necessarily. Like, there are very smart, very capable people out there who are just stuck in belief, right? And that
Mhm.
maybe will open their eyes, and maybe they'll further understand like why this stuff works, why it's appealing to people, so that they can then go out from the skeptic camp and kind of engage with that if they want to. So, I mean, I see pros and cons both directions. Just it just depends on your mission for your event, I think.
I think Romero is 100% right on that. If they're vetted, it makes sense. And I think there's some topics you wouldn't want to choose. I mean, like an AIDS denialist or rabid
Anti-vax.
anti-vaxxer, or some of those topics are just going to be just too contentious, and it evolves into shouting matches and things. But I've seen when I was in Poland for the European Skeptic Congress they did a few years ago, they would do like 4 speakers on a topic. They all had the same topic, and then a break, and then 4 speakers on another topic, completely different topic. And then the next day, they'd go to dinner. And one day was on exorcisms, because it's Poland and exorcisms were a big deal there. And because we're at a European event, I didn't know who these people were. You're reading their bios, you didn't really understand. One person they brought in was a priest who helps talk about like when something's a miracle, that kind of stuff. How does the church determine a miracle?
Mhm.
And then they had a guy who produced a magazine called Exorcist, and then there was another guy who was a hypnotist, who was one of our people, who talked about hypnotism, and he did a hypnotism. He brought people up and he hypnotized them, and made them do some things that was fun. But so it was all kind of in the same area. And the guy who was a priest turned out to be very skeptical. He was really into the, like, well, how do you prove this and that kind of stuff. That was very interesting. And then the guy who had written the magazine he really believed it. And it was fascinating. I was having a hard time with his accent. The lecture's out there if you want to find it. It's on the European Skeptics Congress website. And he, at the end of his event, he had a slide that said, let's go have a beer and talk about this. And people told me they went out and had a beer with him afterwards. They had great conversations with him. He was really interesting. So I guess it just kind of depends on the topic. So I would not say no, but like Ramiro says, I wouldn't say we have to find somebody and then you're pulling in who knows who without vetting them. All right. You guys have been wonderful. We're an hour and a half into this. This has been such a good discussion, and I could probably talk for about 5 more hours, but I don't want to waste your time with doing that. But I hope that people will show up on the 11th, and if they want to come back and look at more of these, or if you're watching this video afterwards, either on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever, if you'll leave your comments, you can reach us. I know I'm very approachable, Susan Gerbic at yahoo.com, or on Facebook or Blue Sky or Twitter or wherever. And probably the other people on this panel. You can't see Jon. He's, if you're watching this on Facebook, he's not showing up, but his name is Jon, Jon Michael. And you might be able to contact him about paranormal stuff. He's located in the Raleigh area also. Linda's in Colorado. Ramiro is also in Raleigh, North Carolina area. And Adrienne is up there, and she's our friend to the north. in Calgary, Canada. But
Can I
anyway,
say one thing before we
sure.
disconnect? So what I will say is, for anyone who is considering doing a skeptic camp that hasn't done it before, or for anyone who's maybe even considered speaking at one but never done it before, I will say I kind of went through a hard time in my life a couple of years ago, and I can point at 2 events that I think changed the trajectory of what I wanted to do, which was public speaking and, getting out and engaging with believers and skeptics alike. But also like turn my life around in a lot of ways. And that was the Raleigh Skeptic Camp of this year. Like that gave me a platform, an opportunity to engage with the skeptical group, Triangle Skeptics, which I'm now involved in. It gave me an opportunity to meet Susan and Adrienne, which also Adrienne gave me great opportunities at Dragon Con. Like it really gave me the opportunities I needed to plug in and like the motivation I needed to just get re-engaged with the worlds I wanted to get re-engaged with. And so these are important events, and you can find the next generation of people who want to get involved. They're out there. So please do them or I will come after you.
Jon, that's really well said. And it's not only about the speakers necessarily, but the people who go sometimes make long-term friendships with other people. And also we're looking for people who are just doers. I mean, people who put the chairs out, people who will, volunteer to, cut up the pizza, people who will help clean up afterwards, the people who will donate money or help invite people or welcome people, because that's really what you're looking for. Is you want to find people who have that kind of personality, who will go up to strangers and say, oh, thank you so much for showing up. Did you register on, can we get your feet, whatever. They don't have to be professors or great speakers or everybody. That's the thing with, and Linda will probably be able to, because she's been doing this for so long, agree with me, is that we're looking for building these communities, and it takes a lot of different people with a lot of different skills to be able to do that. She's going to nod her head. Yes. Okay. Okay. So, again, if people want to reach out to us, I'm sure pretty much anybody here will be happy to hear from them if you have any questions, especially about a location that we're at. I'm going to do this kind of talk again on the 11th. If you guys want to show up again, you're more than welcome to. And I'll try to talk about some different subjects that we didn't cover today, which there's a lot of things we didn't cover today that we can cover again on Tuesday. But anyway, thank you all. Take care. Have a great day,
everybody. Nice to see everybody.
Thanks for joining me.
Nice to see.
Good to see you guys.